早く届けて教えて気持ちをまだこんなにも震えてるこの胸はきっと旅立ったあなたのせい羽ばたけさあ大空に両手を広げて風舞い上がれ永遠を一瞬に滅し心はあなたの腕の中今かけてきて抱きしめて Kiss me
On June 26, 1992, Game Arts released one of the best-selling Mega CD games ever. This is Lunar, the Silver Star. The game takes place in the fantasy land of Lunar, a small habitable world orbiting the Marvel barren blue planet known as the Blue Star. Centuries before the start of the game, the Blue Star was rendered unlivable by years of war. The powerful and benevolent goddess Althena relocated humanity to the Silver Star, the world of Lunar, and entrusted 4 dragons to safeguard the elements of the new world. From this point on, those who would use the power of the dragons to serve the goddess and protect the world were known as Dragon Masters. And no such Dragon Master was more relevant than Dain, a legendary hero who defended the goddess and succumbed to an unknown fate. The story surrounding Dain's exploits would form the life model for a young boy named Alice. Yes, his real name is Alice, spelled A-L-E-S. But because this sounds like the girl's name Alice, excluding the awesome Alice Cooper of course, the name was changed to Alex for the Western release. Alice also aspires to become a Dragon Master himself, and it is Alice who you take the role of in Lunar, the Silver Star. Much of the plot of Lunar, the Silver Star was written by novelist Kei Shigema, and involves a world of high fantasy with the emphasis of folklore and legend. This is also very clear to see in the areas of the world you visit. The music for Lunar, the Silver Star was composed by Noriyuki Idaware, Hiroshi Fujioka, Isao Mizoguchi, and Yoshiaki Kubodera, who utilized the Mega CD's sound capabilities to create CD quality audio. The game features the opening theme Lunar, performed by Mayumi Sudo in the original Japanese version. There is an English version of the song performed by Shia Almeida. This version actually has no title and completely different lyrics.
Dorero, 私の眠りを妨げるものはほう、久しぶりの旅人じゃな。
On October 25th, 1996, the Silver Star came to the Saturn as Silver Star Story. Lunar, the Silver Star Story, is a remake of the original story. The game begins just like the Silver Star, with Alice, the young boy in the village of Berg, dreaming of adventure. Silver Star Story is not one of those lazy 16 to 32-bit ports, as it really is almost a completely new game. All of the graphics have been redrawn, all of the maps are different, and most of the text has been entirely rewritten. The enemies have been changed, dungeons have been added or removed, and the battle system has been altered and rebalanced. The static, loosely animated stills have been replaced by full motion video, and the soundtrack is completely different. All of the main party members and many of the secondary characters finally get their own voice actors too. What stays mostly the same is the general story, although even that's been altered significantly. Within just the opening hours of gameplay, there are numerous changes. In the White Dragon Cave at the beginning of the game, Quark requests that the gang digs deeper into the dungeon in order to find something to prove their worth, sending them on an extra subquest. In the Mega CD version, the path to the Weird Woods was blocked by a damaged bridge, whereas here it's filled with fog, which is cleared up by Lunar singing, foreshadowing her magical abilities. By far the biggest alteration though is that Lunar originally left the adventure fairly early on in the original game. In Silver Star Story, she tags along and spends far more time with the central crew, further fleshing out her personality and relationships with the characters. Another great change is that the overworld map has no enemy encounters, so it just exists to travel between major locations. Random battles are gone and enemies are now visible on the field. The battle system is basically the same, though the number of skills have been cut down and condensed, which makes sense considering how redundant many of them were originally. So this remake is more and less at the same time. Personally, I do think it is the better game, but make no mistake, the original will always have its charm. On July 4th, 1997, the Sega Saturn got a second port of Silver Star Story, known as Silver Star Story Complete. This version is basically the same as the original, but now with MPEG-1 quality FMV. The downside to this is that the game requires the MPEG cartridge to run. Thankfully, I own an Hitachi Hi Saturn, which came with the MPEG cartridge, and a Victor Saturn that also has an MPEG cartridge. The quality of the video is a big step up from the original game, but it's not the best you can see on the Saturn, that's for sure. On May 28, 1998, Lunar Silver Star came to the PlayStation, but not by Game Arts. This port was done by Alpha System. So how did Alpha System do with this port? Well, for the most part, this is a straight up port of the Saturn Lunar Star story complete. There are a few graphical changes, but nothing major. The FMV is of a lower quality and boxed. The game also has some different sound effects during battles, and they are of a lower sample rate than the Saturn game. Overall though, if you've never played the Saturn complete version, you'd think this was a great game, which it is. December 8th, 1999 saw Windows 98 get a release in Japan and Korea. Getting hold of a Japanese version is tough, so I've got the Korean port here. Sadly, with this being an older PC game, it is a right pain to get running on a modern PC. It also runs in a resolution that my PC capture card didn't like, so I'm afraid we're stuck with phone camera footage. Still, at least I get to show you some of the game. This is basically a port of the Saturn game, but now with much better FMV. Even better than the Silver Star story complete. The graphics can be displayed in a high resolution mode, which I'm using here, or you can go old school 240p, or even choose scanlines. They don't look so hot though. What is interesting is that the game uses MIDI renditions of all the music. Best of all, these can be played via any MIDI player. In this port, all the voice clips are dubbed into Korean, besides the opening video. They've gone with an English dub of the original theme, because at the time of release, Korea hated anything Japanese. Take the Korean Saturn for example. They removed the Japanese language from the BIOS, but kept all the other languages. They didn't even add a Korean option. The default is English. Anyway, I wish I could show you more of this PC port, but sadly it kept crashing, running at inconsistent frame rates, no matter what setting was used, and more issues. Sorry. And here we are with an art media port of Lunar Silver Star to the Game Boy Advance, which was released on April 4th, 2002. This version is actually called Lunar Silver Star Legend, and while it does follow the Silver Star story plot, it is also very different. There are many removed areas as well as new areas added. The game also goes for a different look, with many areas now being side-on rather than overhead. Towns are also very different, and there is no more map exploring, since going to the map only lets you choose predetermined locations. This really does lessen the feeling of exploration. Graphically, the game looks nice. It does make use of assets from the original Saturn game in areas, however, the interface is rather lacking, especially when equipping items or shopping. The audio is also lacking, with hissy samples of the original music in mono. It really does not sound good, and for me, it distracts from the overall experience. On November 12, 2009, we saw the final release of Silver Star Story, known as Lunar Harmony of Silver Star, for the PSP. Unlike the previous Game Boy Advance game, this is what I would call a director's cut of the Silver Star Complete game. It's the same game with everything intact, but extra content that really connects this game to the sequel, Lunar Eternal Blue. The game starts with a backstory of 4 heroes facing off against the mysterious Eiffel. After that point, we switch to the regular Silver Star Story plotline. As you can see, the entire game has been given a facelift, yet everything remains familiar. Strangely, all the music has been remade, including the opening theme, yet the music tracks are the same as the original. It's good to see that the original voice cast is intact and wasn't messed around with. The FMV is clean, but runs at a low resolution, leading to a very soft look and, dare I say, out of focus. This doesn't really matter on a small PSP screen, but it doesn't look too hot when viewed on a TV. Overall, I really like this port. Do I like it better than the original? Probably not, as I have the nostalgia for the way the original looks, but if I'd never played the original, I'd probably love this version. And let's take a look at all those versions of Lunar Silver Star running side by side. Well, except the PC version because I couldn't capture enough footage of that one.